We are standing in the first one of our core stores. We have three. We call this the onshore store, primarily obviously because it stores material that is collected from onshore in the UK. You'll see behind me racking containing lots of different pieces of core. You'll be able to see cardboard boxes. Each cardboard box contains basically one stick of drill core. As a rough guide, if we were to take the boxes that you see and we were to put them end to end, we would end up with something like 600 kilometres of material. That would be enough drill core to stretch from London right up to Edinburgh. Both are obviously places where we have a BGS office, so we could join the two offices with core. If we look inside one of these boxes, we should find a piece of drill core. So what we'll do is we'll go down and have a look at this one. They're all quite heavy. It's drilled with a circular drill bit that will go down and will extract a cylindrical piece of core. If you are either working to a budget or you need to get through a lot of rock quickly, there's another recovery method that we call cuttings, and that's this little jar here, and that's typically done because it's a lot cheaper. You can still get scientific data out of those. The petrologists can take those, they can look at those, they can do chemical analysis, they can look at microfossils in there, but we hold plenty of these and plenty of bits of core like this. This is a tray of cuttings taken from one drill hole at sequential depths, and they come up through the hole in the drilling mud or the drilling lubricant, and they're washed clean and stored in these little jars. To get samples like that, we would use a roller bit like this down here. Each of these teeth will grind up the rock as the drill moves down, and then it's passed back up the drilling tube and back onto the surface. So each of these is a hardened steel face on there. Modern drills tend to use either tungsten carbide or diamond powders or diamonds embedded into the surface, which means that you get a much harder surface and a much more effective drill, but obviously at a cost. This is our newest core store. We call this the offshore store. This was built in 2011 and it houses material from the UK continental shelf. So if you're not familiar with that, that's the material from areas like the Shetland Islands that's historically been drilled for oil and gas. This was a custom built store, and one of the things we were able to do here was use this mobile racking. Each one of these racks weighs around 600 tons, so that's the weight of a large passenger train. There are 16 motors underneath each one that drive it, and we can move it simply just by pressing a button. So I can select which aisle I need to move. So this time I'm going to go for aisle number 11, which is this way. I can press the green button to move it. There are safety features all over this system, and the whole racking sequence will move. Each one moves individually. They are speed controlled, so we don't shake any of our samples. And you'll see in a second they'll all start to slow down very gently and give us access to aisle number 11. You've probably been wondering how we can actually reach the very top pallets up there. They're 12 pallets high up there, so it's around 10 or 12 meters or 30 feet in the air. The answer is that we have a specialist piece of equipment called a very narrow aisle truck. There is a special course to drive them, which includes being able to abseil out of the cab should there be a material failure or a equipment failure when he's working up at height. But he will be able to go into the aisle, verify that he's got the right material, and then bring that down to ground level where we can pick it up with a regular forklift. Each pallet weighs about 400 kilos. There are edging on 20,000 pallets here. Another one that people ask is, how much does it all cost? I would say that offshore oil drilling has been known to cost up to $1,000 per metre. And factor in there that we have wells that can be several kilometres deep, and that gives you an idea of the vast amount of money that is actually stored behind me in this drill core. There are approximately 250,000 metres of onshore core and 350,000 metres of offshore core. So again, potentially billions of pounds worth of core behind me. So one of the reasons we are here, it is so valuable to the UK, we cannot afford to replace this resource. Okay, once the pallet has reached the ground, the high rack can go off and retrieve another pallet if that's what's needed. This one we can pick up with a forklift truck and we can drive it round into the examination labs. And this is where the material ends up. Our technicians will lay it out on these benches in depth order, and by the time you arrive at 9 o'clock in the morning in the core store, everything will be ready for you to look at just as you see it here. We are not a museum, we are actually a scientific body holding core for the benefit of the nation. So you're allowed to take a small sample that you can take away, you can make a thin section, or you can do some physical analysis or chemical analysis on it, but what we ask is that the data comes back to us within 6 months. We don't genuinely know what it's going to be used for next. Often 20 or 30 years later, there will be a new interest in it, things that we didn't know about when the holes were drilled, and they're all kept here for that purpose. One of the primary uses is for making the maps that BGS is famous for. We have gone from our first map that was started in 1835 right through to what we now call a digital 3D model, and a lot of the data for that model comes from the core that you see behind me. So in order to know what is subsurface, one of the only ways we can reliably find out is to drill a hole in it and to pull that core out and look at it to see what we find subsurface and where. So there's a huge amount of work is done by BGS internal staff, and this is one of our primary resources for the data we put out.